All right, today I wanted to talk about dealing with rising costs of things. I watched the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct and I got really excited for everything. But yeah, it was kind of sus at first that they didn't mention anything about any prices during the Nintendo Direct. That was a little creeping thought in the back of my head as I got ready for my therapy appointment. And then when I was resting from straining my back in the Star Market parking lot, I dug into some of the pricing and found out about how Mario Kart World is $80 digitally and $90 physically. The Switch 2 itself is 450, up from 350 for the OLED model of the Switch 1, 300 for the ori- launch model of the Switch and the improved battery version. Yeah, it was a little disheartening because I'd planned for $400 for the console itself, and then $70 for a game, which plus the Massachusetts state sales tax would have come out to just shy of $500. Instead, I had to figure out another $31.24 to cover the sales tax for the Mario Kart World bundle, which I'm glad is being offered because that'll be $30 less in the long run. In the During the afternoon while I was resting my back, trying to heal it, and after I scheduled my appointment at the urgent care, I watched a little YouTube where people were talking about the prices that came out for this and how unhappy they were with it. But my take on this, honestly, I have nothing against the prices going up because for games that had DLC, if you actually sit down and think about it, we've been paying in the neighborhood of those prices for such things for a while anyway. So what I'm hoping for is DLC won't be a thing with these higher priced games because everything's going to be there from the start. And yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Because think about it. Take Pokemon Sword, Shield, Scarlet, and Violet, for example. The base games for each of those is $60, but then the DLC is $35 for each game. So you're effectively paying $95 plus tax for each game if you want the complete experience. Take Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as well. It's effectively $85 for the full experience of the base game and the DLC, which is just how it is. And yeah, that DLC wasn't initially planned. They kind of threw it in there because the Switch's life cycle went a little longer than expected, and they may as well have ported it over. They wanted to port over the Mario Kart World Tour, I think it's called Mario Kart Tour. I think it was the mobile game. They wanted to port the courses from that into that, I guess, which I enjoyed. I have perfect 3-star gold trophies in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe across the board, board with both the base game and the DLC, which I get as part of the Switch 2 online. I mean, the Switch Online expansion pack, which has become worth the $50 per year over time. And with the addition of the Switch 2 upgrades for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I'm getting more value out of it. I already paid my $50 for the year in February, so if it goes up by then, I'm not going to complain too much because they've added some decent value so far. Now, I don't think the retro games should cost that much compared to, say, having the DLC or the Switch 2 patches for Switch 1 games. But anyway, the main topic here is about dealing with rising costs and figuring it out, like deciding what you spend on or not, because groceries have had this going on. When I went into Star Market yesterday, I actually checked the egg prices because I keep hearing about eggs being way too expensive. Now, I have the fortune that my parents happen to buy eggs in bulk anyway, and they let me take from the supply. I get to make a breakfast taco every morning using 2 eggs from whatever supply they happen to get. Most recently, my dad bought a 60 pack from BJ's. That stands for Berkeley and Jensen's, by the way. And when that runs out, he's probably going to get, I don't know, if not that, probably another 18 or 24 pack, which is nowhere near the dollar per egg that I heard was a thing. I remember the dozen of store brand that I saw last night was relatively close to 50 cents per egg, about 50 to 60 cents per egg. It was 6.49. Divide that by 12 eggs, 12, 24. That's 50, 49, 0. About 50 cents, about 51 cents per egg. Pro tip, always buy store brand where possible. It might not say, not be called insert store name here brand, but if you know what their store brand is, if you go for that instead of the name brand, you're going to save money and it's pretty much the same thing. There is almost no difference between store or brand and name brand things. Like popcorn kernels are always just going to be popcorn kernels. There is literally nothing that Jiffy Pop or Orville Redenbacher can do to make popcorn kernels stand out. You're paying for the brand. Whereas I buy the Signature Select popcorn kernels, that's Star Market's store brand for most of their pantry and free freezer items. Their dairy and egg items are called Lucerne. That's the brand that I generally buy because they're cheaper than the name brands. Now, I only buy name brands when there's steep discounts. Like, I got 3 1.5 quart containers of Hood ice cream, or I think it's a frozen dairy treat. I think that's, yeah, they don't call it ice cream on the label because, like Dairy Queen, they're legally not allowed to call it ice cream, but it's good stuff. I got myself the of those because they were 2.77 each for a maximum of 3. Great value, if I do say so myself. I got 2 bags each I got a bag each of Doritos, Flamin' Hot Doritos, Cheetos, Flamin' Hot Cheetos, and 2 bags of movie theater butter Smart Food for 227 each. These are like the big bags, not the little ones. So yeah, I think the best way to manage costs is spread out saving it over as long a period of time as possible so you can put aside a small amount. Like for my iPhone upgrades, I put aside $8.50 every week for 3 years, and assuming the price of the entry level iPhone blank Pro Max, in my case, when it comes time, the 19 Pro Max, if that happens to go up in price, one, I hope they have more internal storage. Like they're just eliminating the 256 gigabyte option and then starting at 512 gigabytes. And two, I'm able to plan accordingly. Like I had, or able to improvise a little. Now, with the Switch 2 being costing $50 more than I expected, my plan was to just put aside enough money over time until the direct from Nintendo pre-orders went live on May 8th. But I'm actually gonna try for Best Buy next week because their pre-orders go live on, what was it, April 9th. So I'm gonna aim for that with the Mario Kart bundle. The only reason I was able to do it now is because my mom was nice enough to pay for my groceries after that doctor's appointment. But also, if that hadn't been the case, I would have just taken from the iPhone upgrade fund and then just doubled it up to $17 from the 850 until I was back on track. Again, spread out as thin as possible. I'm going to have to do a separate video on how I manage budgets that I think a lot of people would benefit from in terms of structure and such. But anyway, the point is look for the extra value in price increases where you can. Yes, shrinkflation is a thing. Yes, yes, it's far from perfect. It's not an ideal situation, but you have to either choose to not spend on it or accept that it's going to cost what it costs, whether it's eggs costing what they cost. If eggs are that important to you, whether you use them for breakfast, literally you just add an egg to something and suddenly it's a breakfast food. Or if you're, what is it? I lost my train of thought. Or you use them in baking and that's important to you. Or if you're a Nintendo fan like me, you have to either accept that the Switch 2 is going to cost what it costs. Again, I think $450 isn't the worst price in the world because especially because it's going up $100 from the highest costing model of the previous generation, which Again, I don't think is the worst increase in the world. It would have been nice if it was just $400. And here's another thing with the games. This isn't the first time Nintendo's priced certain games more than other ones. Back in the DS days, I remember Pokemon games used to cost $5 more just because they were Pokemon games. Yeah, most DS games sold for $29.99 each. And then Pokemon games and a couple of other ones went for $34.99 each. I remember because I pre ordered and purchased Pokemon Platinum. And then Heart Gold and Soul Silver were $40 each, but those came with the Poke Walker, so that's more than forgivable. But anyway, I don't know why Nintendo stopped doing that, but they're doing it again. So this isn't the first time Nintendo's priced certain games more than others. Well, recently they priced Tears of the Kingdom at $10 more, but that was like a one-time outlier for that generation. Whereas on the DS, it was actually pretty common. If you happen to remember any other DS games that were probably all the Nintendo published ones that were $35 instead of the usual 30, you let me know in the comments down below because Pokemon one's the only one I can really remember at this moment in time. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the name brand. Maybe it's because they took more effort to develop than your average DS game. I don't know. I wasn't in the boardroom. Anyway, I am going to leave it here for the video because I think I've made my point. You comment down below how you adjust to rising costs depending on your situation. I know wages don't always keep up with inflation, but it is possible to make it work out so that you're not living in squalor. And hey, if you think that I'm some out of touch a hole, don't be afraid to let me know in the comments down below. I love the engagement for the algorithm. You give this video a like, that's more engagement right there. Subscribe for daily videos, and I'll see you soon.